Okay, this is the second kind of market found in Chapter 10, and this is called oligopoly. And these markets are less competitive than monopolistic competition, and they can be more competitive than monopoly. It depends on what happens in these markets. Market structure, we have few large sellers. So the market is dominated by a few large sellers out there, and they can sell an identical product, like maybe cement, or a differentiated product, like maybe soft drinks, like Coke and Pepsi. And there are substantial barriers. So it's hard to get in these markets. It might be because you have economies of scale. It might be because you have high fixed cost, high advertising cost, things of that nature. So examples would be oil, soft drinks, supermarkets, depends on the area, music industry, which may be breaking apart with, again, technology, YouTube, cement, 2 gas stations in a small town, things like that. And the critical thing that happens in these markets is because you have a small number of competitors, they have what's called mutual interdependence. They know who's out there, they know who their competitors are, and they understand if they take some kind of a market action, change their price, advertise, move into new sub-markets, that their competitors will react in some manner or form. So you have to be worried about how your competitors will react to what you do and vice versa. And so before any firm decides to make a price change or any kind of change, it must consider the reaction of its rivals. Now in your book they talk about different models for oligopoly, and one is a cartel model. This one's pretty easy. Here they have collusion, which means they work together, and they act like a monopoly. So they can fix prices. And so they would develop a market marginal cost based on all the firms in the market, 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and compare that to the market margin of revenue, and then just price off the market demand and be like a monopoly. They can also do production quotas. They can just limit output and let the market decide the price, and that's what OPEC does. This is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and for a long time they would set production quotas, and they would try to control those quotas and keep the supply low, and the supply being kept low will keep prices high. And then your book has what's called a kink demand curve model. I'm not going to do this. It simply was a model to try to explain why prices tend to be more stable and all these. It's sort of a contrived model where they're trying to manufacture a model to explain a result, when really the reason why prices tend to be quite stable in oligopolies is there's not much competition. So what really matters in the study of oligopoly these days, and that's called game theory. So game theory is used to explain the mutual dependent firms making simultaneous or sequential decisions. Simultaneous is at the same time, sequential is one after another. And so when we look at their interdependence, we look at what economists call games. So in these games, we have players, and the players have a strategy. And the strategy is a choice that takes into account the actions of other players. And each strategy brings about different returns, payoffs. Payoffs could be monetary, could be some kind of other kind of payoff. And then from these payoffs, we can create a payoff matrix that shows the different returns based on different combinations of strategies. And that's something that we are able to visualize the game being played and be able to interpret what's going on with these games. Now, based on the payoff matrix, players may be able to determine what's known as a dominant strategy. So that's something to know for the test. A dominant strategy exists if a player has one choice where, regardless of the choice taken by the other player, that player receives the best payoff. So dominant strategy is simply something that you're going to do, a strategy you're going to pick, no matter what the other player does. The other player can do A, the other player can do B, you're going to do A, and that would be a dominant strategy. Dominant strategies are one ways we can determine the equilibrium, where the players are going to end up. which is the equilibrium for the game. Now, games can be cooperative, such as a cartel where they act together, or games can be non-cooperative where they're very competitive. Games can be repetitive where you have one play after another, or games could be non-repetitive when there's one-time play. And there's a kind of an equilibrium that is used quite a bit in game theory, and that's called the Nash equilibrium. And that's an outcome in which each player maximizes the payoff to that player given the strategies of all the other players. So what this means is that at this equilibrium, no player can be better off by unilaterally deviating from the non-cooperative outcome. So meaning we would have a Nash equilibrium if each player has picked the best choice they can based on the choice taken by the other player or players. Now in chapter 10, we just have two players, and we're going to have two strategies to keep the analysis as simple as possible. And we're going to look at the first game we're going to look at is going to be known as the Prisoner's Dilemma, which is probably the most well-known game there is. And it's usually presented the following. We have two individuals, Bob and Anna, and they've been arrested for robbery. The police believe that Bob and Anna are the individuals involved in a series of robberies around town. The police have evidence for that one robbery, but little evidence for the series of others. So they can put them away right now for a short period of time, but they want to gather more evidence, and therefore they can have a longer sentence. So as you're watching maybe a criminal TV show, Bob and Anna are being held separately, and they cannot contact each other, and then they start to be interrogated. And during the interrogation, there are four possible outcomes. If both Anna and Bob admit nothing, the police will only have evidence for one robbery, and they'll get 2 years each. If Bob cooperates, confesses, while Anna stays quiet, Bob gets a deal, gets 1 year, and Anna gets sent down for 10 years. If Anna does the opposite, Anna cooperates, confesses, while Bob stays quiet, Anna gets a deal, 1 year, and Bob goes down for 10 years. And finally, they both confess, they both will get 4 years. So here is a payoff matrix. We have Bob's strategies, confess, stay quiet. Anna's right here, confess, stay quiet. And so here's the choice that if they both stay quiet, they each get 2 years. And here, if Bob confesses and Anna stays quiet, Anna goes down for 10, Bob gets a deal. And then if Anna confesses and Bob stays quiet, Anna gets a deal and Bob goes down for 10 years. And if they both confess, they both get 4 years. So the question is, do these players have a dominant strategy, and do we have a Nash equilibrium here? And the best way to think of this is to look at each person's perspective. And so look at Anna's perspective. So if Bob confess, what should Anna do? Well, look at down here. Bob confesses. Anna has two choices, confess, stays quiet. And so she has two choices, 4 years or 10 years. Anna should confess. Then if Bob stays quiet, we're now over here on the matrix. And so Anna again has two choices, confess, gets 1 year, stays quiet, gets 2 years. That's the best choice, confess. So you would say that Anna has a dominant strategy. No matter what Bob does, confess or stays quiet, Anna's best choice is to confess, and that is the perfect example of a dominant strategy. Bob's perspective. So let's look at Anna. If Anna say confess. We're looking at the matrix here. Going this way, two choices for Bob. Bob can confess, get 4 years. Stays quiet, get 10 years. That's a better choice, confess, so Bob should confess. And then if Anna stays quiet, well, now we're down here. These two choices. Bob can confess and get 1 year. Bob can stay quiet and get 2 years. That's the better choice, confess. So you would say that Bob has a dominant strategy as well, which is to confess, because again, no matter what Anna does, confess, stays quiet, Bob's best choice is to confess. And so this is Anna's dominant strategy. That is Bob's dominant strategy, and we have a Nash equilibrium right there. And so in game theory, we would make the following prediction that both Anna and Bob will confess. Now this is a non-cooperative game, so they can't contact with each other, and they can't communicate, and they really don't trust each other, and therefore based on those conditions for the game, a non-cooperative game, we have one decision, it's simultaneous decision, and both would confess.